So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar of the year. And it's titled Stay Focused, a roadmap to higher education and careers. I'm so happy to be here with you today. For those who don't know, my name is Raquel Wilson. I am the proud program manager here for the Youth Voices Rising program at Foster and Media Connections. Just a little bit about our program. Oh, I'm so sorry. So through educational workshops, writing and poetry contests, paid contributor roles, intensive fellowships, we just recently started a Foster and Justice Council. Youth Voices Risings provides writing opportunities to young people who have lived experience in the child welfare and juvenile justice system. We have essentially created a safe space for those who have been involved in the system and impacted by the system to amplify their voices through different means of opportunities, in particular and specific with writing. And so we have so many great things coming up this year that will be very happy to share with you later on. But just a little bit about FMC. Our articles are all posted on and covered. All our articles that our program participants, are covered on the imprint and in Foster and Families Today magazine. If you want to stay updated on all of the great things that we are doing here at the Youth Voice program, please feel free to join and follow our newsletters. We will be dropping the link in the chat. And then also another way that you can stay informed about all of the wonderful things that we are doing is following us on our social media handles, which is also provided to you here. And so at this time, you will see a quick poll survey come up on your screen. And this is just lets me know, if you're a former or current foster youth, if you are a resource parent, if you're a social worker or attorney, if you work with foster youth, because we want to make sure that, of course, all of our events are aimed to not only empower and inspire other foster youth and system impacted youth, but also aim to provide knowledge and advice and best recommendations to those who serve and work in workplaces that foster youth and those have been impacted by the juvenile justice system are. And so this just lets me know how I can do a better job of connecting these webinars to folks who work in the industry, and how I can do a better job of, ensuring that your program participants learn about all of the opportunities that we have going on here at Youth Voice program. And so we're just going to allow a little bit more time for other folks to fill in, and then we will share those results soon. And please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what state you're in, what organization you're representing. Please feel free to make connections. The chat is a wonderful place for you to connect with other folks who are like-minded in like-minded industry, doing some of the similar things that we are doing, trying to advocate for system impacted youth, trying to provide knowledge and recommendations and solutions to those who serve youth and empower their program participants. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from, what organization you're representing, and we would love to connect with you. And so, yes, I see that we have some current and former foster youth. We have some resource parents. I love that we always have social workers and attorneys. I'm going to be doing two webinar events this year dedicated to social workers and positive relationships. And so if you are a former foster youth social worker on this call, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide my email in the chat because I definitely would love to have you join us for those events. We see that the email blasts are working. We see that the newsletters are definitely working, so please stay informed by subscribing to our to our newsletter. And so with that being said, I would love to introduce our lovely panelists today. And so first up, we have Louis. And so Louis Gasper has worked on reforming the foster care system since he was 13 years old by collaborating on and leading local, national, and international projects with California Youth Connection, the Mockingbird Society, Foster Club, Think of Us, Youth Move National, the International Foster Care Alliance, and the National Association of Counsel for Children. Mr. Gasper currently holds a position on the National Association of Black Journalists Political Task Force Executive Board as the Secretary Treasurer, and has previously been a Journalism Institute Fellow with the POI. I don't know. I'm not sure how to pronounce this word, but I'm just gonna spell it out. It's an acronym: Politico, and the Independent Journal Review. Completed internships at NBC, Meet the Press, C-SPAN, just to name a few. He's also a director of a community radio station. Mr. Gasper currently works as the Judicial Project Coordinator for the Capacity Building Center for States, supporting federal child welfare reform efforts. His interdisciplinary approaches and skills for analyzing public policy, reviewing legislative, writing and editing, project management, media mentoring, and monitoring curation, communications, and enhancing his work to offer a unique approach to solutions addressing child welfare reform. Louis, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Louis is also a member of our Foster and Justice Council and has been working with the Youth Voice program and participating in opportunities since I've been here. So thank you so much, Louis, for joining us today. We really appreciate you and look forward to hearing more about your education and career pathway. Next we have up is Sophie. And so I'm not sure why this is, no, actually, Sophie, I'm gonna do you last. I'm sorry about this. And so next we have Jacqueline. So Jacqueline is a policy enthusiastic consultant, and most importantly, a dog mom of two. We love our dogs. After living in Los Angeles foster care system in the Indian Child Welfare Unit for over 15 years of her life, Jacqueline was tired of the same statistics of Black and Brown youth failing in the system. Identifying as both Indigenous and Latina, Jacqueline was set on a career to level the playing field for foster youth of color. Jacqueline has sat in various leadership positions to advocate and shape policy for Los Angeles foster youth. Currently, Jacqueline is a consultant for the Office of Child Protection, working on a national initiative for foster youth called the Thriving Families, Safer Children. Jacqueline is a youth commissioner for the Board of Supervisors and was appointed by Board of Supervisors Janice Hahn. Jacqueline earned a Bachelor's of Science in Business Management at California State University, Long Beach, and is projected to earn a Master's of Public Policy degree from UCLA, which I think that you already completed. Have you completed that already, Jacqueline? Yes. I was just making sure. I'm like, I feel like she already have complete that. So Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining. Congratulations on all of your accomplishments and everything that you have done thus far. I'm so grateful to have you join here today and all of the work that we have been doing and the things that we're going to continue to keep doing. And so I look forward to hearing and look forward to you sharing more about your education and career pathway that you have took. And so last but certainly not least, we have Sophie Marsaw Navarez. And so Sophie is a Latina multimedia artist based in Sacramento, California. Marsaw Navarez, I'm sorry, please don't make me, I'm sorry for messing that up. Is an activist, art explorers, recurring themes of isolation, interpersonal violence, resistance of authority systems, race within the framework of the foster system, the punitive isolation that is imposed upon youth labeled as a danger to others within the system is the focus of her art. She has been recognized for her work in digital and media format, photography, as well as videography. She is currently majoring in sociology and is employed at the mayor's office of Sacramento, which I also believe that Sophie has graduated as well. And so, but I'm not sure. So Sophie, I want to thank you so much for being here. Sophie is also the president of our Foster and Justice Council, Empowerment Council. And so Sophie, Louis, Jackie, I'm so happy to have you guys here today. And with that being said, let's get started with the discussion, because I'm sure our audience members are dying to hear about you guys' stories. So I'm going to start with Jackie. And so, Jackie, please describe your foster care experience briefly, and then please explain to us and share with us, your education background, the steps that you took that got you into the field of work that you are now in.
Thank you, Raquel, for having me. Good morning, everyone. At least in Los Angeles, it's morning time. My name is Jacqueline Robles. I go by Jackie. I am a Los Angeles native, and I actually entered foster care when I was about 5 years old. My mother, she suffered from severe mental illness and addiction, and my father actually was and is serving a life sentence in prison. And so I spent majority of my life in foster care, and I moved from different foster homes and group homes and shelters, and I was homeless for a minute and I couch surf with friends. So spend a lot of my time there. When I was 17 years old, I lived in Hollywood, California, and I lived in a group home, and I graduated from high school. And I didn't know how, but I knew that I was going to go to college because I didn't want to end up like my family. I wanted a different future for myself and for my future family. And so I thought higher education would be the ticket out of my circumstances. And so after high school, I graduated, fortunately, because that is not, a big statistics for FOSS. And so I graduated and I immediately went to a 4-year university. I went to California State University, Long Beach, where I majored in business management. I actually completed my 4-year degree in 3 years. And so I finished when I was 21 years old. Immediately after that, I went and I applied and was accepted to UCLA for their Master of Public Policy program. I was the youngest person in my 60-person cohort, and I just completed that this past June. Took me 2 years to finish, and so I finished my master's at 23. After that, I took some time off because grad school killed me, and I went on a US road trip. I came back and I had a position with a consulting group here in Los Angeles, and that ended. And most recently, I just took on a position with as a policy advisor for a national nonprofit called Engine, and I'm working on closing income equality gaps through policy for communities of color and trying to create policies for generational wealth for communities of color. And so that's kind of where I'm at and what I continue to do. And so hopefully one day I'm working on the federal level and writing and proposing policies for foster youth, homeless youth, formerly incarcerated, and just marginalized communities in general. So thank you so much for having me. And that's just a little bit about me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie. I'm so proud of everything that you have accomplished, and you better talk that into existence. You will be working on policy. You will be, keep manifesting your destiny. I really appreciate you. And so, Louis, I would like to pass that same question over to you, and then Sophie, you can follow up. Do you guys need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, if you could repeat it, I would appreciate it.
Yes, so please describe your foster care experience. And then also share with us your educational background and how that pathway led you to the field of work that you're in.
Thank you so much, Raquel. And thank you today for inviting us and all of the panelists for being willing to share their experiences. So I entered foster care when I was about 10 or 11 years old. My family had made some contact with Child Protective Services prior, but I would say that was when I had that shift in my life. And basically similar to Jacqueline, a mixture of foster homes and group homes. One thing that was pretty, I think, circumstantial for myself was within my first year, between the time of turning 11 and turning 12, I had entered a group home, my first group home. So that was really a lot of the experience that I knew early on of what I knew the child welfare system to be until later on when I eventually was in a foster home for my last year and a half. So when I was 17, I graduated high school, and really no one thought that I would graduate high school at the time. I was into school at one point, kind of dealt with my, my own mental health, my own circumstances, and really just wasn't able to focus on it in the same kind of way. So I knew, also similar to Jacqueline, that I needed to get there no matter what. I needed the 4-year experience. I needed to really just experience something that was different, but I think, I didn't know all the nuances of it. I just knew that this was one extreme, foster care was one really negative extreme, and that, if I could potentially do school or do something else, that could be some sort of positive extreme to kind of take me out of that and take me out of the sort of generational experiences as well. So I, at 17 years old, I actually went AWOL which is called what Absent Without Leave. But I wasn't 18 at the time, even though I graduated college or graduated high school and was ready for it. So I had $400 in my bank account and took the Greyhound to Olympia, Washington, and basically had found the school off of just looking at the Google search engine, and really looking at what could bring value to my life. And at that time, it was something that could have an alternative education, something where I could really be able to build my skills in a way that wasn't just in the classroom. So I went to a liberal arts college that kind of focused on a lot of curriculum like that. And within the first couple of years was able to take some of the foster care advocacy experience with California Youth Connection, working on like the legislative and policy committees. So many of the important things that I think I hear now today of people, working on and figuring out how to really be able to retranslate that within another system, working on with Washington State. And then at the same time was working at a community radio station. From there, I became a director of promotions and outreach, which was just supporting one of the leaders of the station. At one point, because of just where I was at in life and working in political media, I decided I wanted to move to DC, but didn't have any money saved still and didn't have the resources. So kind of did some family finding in the process and connecting to be able to get out there and try to work on the more national level with political media and communications. So was able to work with C-SPAN at the time, and then NBC News, Meet the Press. So it was really on this one journey towards media and communications, but also working on the foster care work at the same time, taking kind of advocacy to consulting and learning about elements of change management consulting and what's going on with child welfare systems, but really just one event at a time. And then was able to, as I was doing that and looking for my career, kind of worked my way into a career in child welfare. So I'm really excited to be here today. I currently work as a jurisdictional project coordinator for the Capacity Building Center for States, which supports the Children's Bureau in efforts to work with child welfare systems across the country for program improvement efforts. But also nothing that I say today represents the Children's Bureau or the Capacity Building Center for States. But yeah, just thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and continue to highlight all of our growth journeys.
Yes, thank you, Louis. I appreciate you. I'm smiling from ear to ear, just listening to you and Jackie tell me about, all of the things that you guys have accomplished. And so thank you so much. And so last but certainly not least, Sophie, take us away. Would you like for me to repeat the question?
I think I got it. I have it written down here.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Jackie and Louis, for sharing what you've just shared with us. And hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It's so essential and important for you guys to be here. So it means everything to us to see this presence here today. I say hello from San Francisco, California. First off, I entered the system at the age of 12 years old, and I ended up aging out at 18. In that duration, I was homeless in foster homes and group homes. It was a crazy experience for me. I had one of the worst case files in my county. It was nearly impossible near the end, towards the time I was 16 to 17, to find me any placement. I actually had to sleep in the CPS office for a certain amount of time before they could send me off to a locked facility, basically. In the duration of my teenage years, I ended up taking up internships in the city of Sacramento, where I would work for journalists. I would work as taking care of babies at daycares. I was also getting great grades in school, just suffering within the system and my social workers. I had no plans on going to college. I was one of those kids that said, college is not for me, I'm never going. And fortunately, I had teachers at that time in my high school who would say, Sophie, you are talented, you can do this, you have A's in these classes for this reason. And they were actually the ones to help me enroll into college and get me going. So by the time I graduated high school with a 3.8 GPA, I was on set to go to community college in Sacramento, Cosumnes River College, actually. And I ended up graduating from there with honors, with my associate's degree in sociology. Now I am at San Francisco State University, majoring in sociology as well. But before I came to San Francisco, I bumped into the mayor of Sacramento while I was going to community college. I was volunteering, and I actually started talking about my passion for foster youth with him. He just saw something in me that he just knew that I was so passionate about what I was talking about that on the spot, he offered me a position in his office with no interview or nothing. So that is how I ended up actually working for him. And he knew that I had experience by the internships I had taken up as a teenager in high school. So that is a little bit about my story. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, Sophie. And I and appreciate all of the accomplishments that you have. And I'm so happy that you listen to your teachers, because I was one of those students that had a really good GPA, but just refused to just know that I was supposed to go to college. Now, look at me, I done got 2 master's degrees, and I low-key want to go back to school. I don't even know why. I'm like low-key addicted to it, but I'm really grateful to have all 3 of you guys here today. And so just to really share about your experiences. And so, you guys talked about, your pathway, but I know that, just due to us and the experiences that we had to adhere to come even, to even get into college, what were some of the challenges that you faced while you were on your pursuit to higher education? And I'll pass it to Sophie.
What were the challenges I faced while trying to get to the college?
Yeah, while trying to get to college, while in college, while just trying to pursue your educational endeavors.
Okay. Well, personally for me, I was the first in my family to I was the first in my family to graduate with a high school diploma. And so I had known nothing about enrolling or what college even looked like. No one in the system had necessarily told me what it looked like. No one in my family had told me what it looked like. No foster parent had. So when I entered in my first month of enrollment, I nearly dropped out because I was so confused with everything on my table. I had not a sense of what a study habit meant. What did it mean to study really well and get good on a test? In high school, it just didn't fit with the same as college. Everything just seemed so much bigger and broad and deeper than anything in high school. So really, it was just finding a good study habit for myself, finding it in a way of, okay, flashcards. Let's try flashcards. If those don't work, I'm going to try to act as if I'm teaching somebody else what I already know from what the professor has taught me, and just going bit by bit and finding habits that fit for you, and also networking and finding students and teachers that are willing to help you. Like I reached out to so many professors that and I stated to them, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? So it was really just the study habits and trying to get in the flow of work, trying to understand something that is so abnormal to you, assimilate basically to the college life that we're just not exposed to as much as any other typical kid.
Yes, thank you, Sophie. Thank you so much. And so, Jackie, I'll pass that same question over to you. Describe some of the challenges that you faced on your pathway to, pursue your higher education, before, during, after, and then Louis, you can follow up right after Jackie.
Of course, this is such a great question because I think, I shared some of the highlights of my educational path, but I faced a lot of challenges. I remember even just starting from high school when I was gonna graduate, I was on the verge of not graduating because my transcripts were a mess. And as you can imagine, this is a common thing for a lot of foster youth. A lot of foster youth jump from school to school, so they have different transcripts from everywhere, and just trying to get them on one transcript to make sure you completed all the classes you need to graduate. So that was one challenge. Another challenge, like Sophie, no one in my family has ever gone to college. Nobody ever completed high school. And at the time, I was not in contact with any of my biological family. And so just trying to go into college, not knowing how to get to college. I didn't have parents that went to college and could help me with the process. So I started from nothing, from scratch, essentially. And so that was a challenge in itself. And then once I was able to overcome that challenge, when I moved into the dorms right after living in a group home, I'm making the transition from group home to like a 4-year university college dorm life, which is completely different than living in a group home. And I came into my dorm room with absolutely nothing. I had like a pillow and a sheet, and that was like what I had. And I had no money. No one was gonna buy me any books, any towels, anything that the typical parents would buy for their college student. And I remember on move-in day, I saw everyone with their parents, or yeah, majority of them with their parents moving them in, and it was a big day. And I was just there. I had my pillow and my sheet, and I had to buy everything from scratch. I remember getting my first financial aid check and like going and buying everything, just basic necessities. So coming in just with that, it just was another challenge. Navigating college and making sure you're on track, making sure you're in the right classes, making sure you're registered for the right classes, which classes to take, getting your textbooks, housing, so many challenges, especially foster youth, if they're entering four-year university or even community college. A lot of them don't have anywhere to live. And so not only are they paying for tuition, if you're lucky to be in a dorm like I was, the dorms are not cheap. And so my financial aid did not cover my dorms. And so trying to get money, I was just hustling. I just remember being on survival mode in college in 4 year, just trying to get through semester by semester, week by week, and just trying to focus on my studies. And luckily, along the way, I was able to secure scholarships and meet different people that kind of helped me pointed me in the right direction. And then finally being able to graduate, and then going into graduate school was a whole different thing. I mean, you're lucky if you go to the 4 year and get your bachelor's degree, but then trying to navigate graduate school, and the application process and getting letter of recommendations and deadlines, and each graduate application costs like $100-something to even apply, and trying to get money for that is just a whole thing itself. And then being in graduate school, and a lot of peers in my program had like 10 years of experience on me, and I'm coming in straight out of my bachelor's. And so navigating that and working with people that have all this experience. And I am fortunate. I graduated from UCLA with some summa cum laude, so highest honors. And I was really proud of that, because I was in a cohort with people, that had 10 years on me. But it just went to show that no matter what happened, whatever my circumstances were, if you have the drive, the ambition, and the resilience, you will get through it, and you can come on top. And I did. And so those are kind of the challenges I face, and a lot of other foster youth face. And a lot of it is financial and housing, especially. So.
Thank you. I love that. And I really appreciate, just how much you went into your story, specifically when you said about the moving into the dorms and that day. Like I saw that running through my head, and I'm sure if you're a foster youth and you've gone through that experience, you know exactly what that's like. So I kind of have an opposite experience to Sophie and Raquel a second ago. Y'all were saying that you had really good GPA and that you didn't want to go to college, but my situation was kind of the opposite when I was 17. I wanted to go to college, and I had a 0.0 GPA for my junior year. So those were the cards that I was initially working with. Prior to that, I was involved in school. I had ranging from like 3.9 GPA all the way down, but through transition to transition, really just lost that motivational factor to really continue forward. But I knew that coming up to that transition point in my life, that was very, very real, that the options really were to find something or to stay within, the same system. And especially with things such as AB 12 for the extended foster care was really helpful, but still knowing that that I needed to kind of do that jump. So the first major hardship that I had was just finding housing. Like I said, I was AWOL at the time, and really 17. So when I took the Greyhound on the bus, I did it to move into a house that I had met the people on Craigslist. And I was just, it was one phone call and the vibes were good. So I was hoping, I'm like, well, that's more than you get sometimes for foster care. So let's just try it out. And yeah, just kind of building, it was really the ability to build myself from scratch in that specific moment. I remember that I was part of some policy committees and part of things like that, the legislative committees, that I would really save like every dollar that I had from those calls in order to make it until I can make it to my first financial aid check and beyond. So I was lucky enough to be able to find a community radio station. So I wanted to find something where I felt like it would be an opportunity for training, for professional development, and something that could just really be an outlet in the same way that working with, for example, CYC was. So I really enjoyed that a lot. I didn't know much about things like work-life balance, maybe spent too much time on the work side on sometimes, and certainly, figuring out also things like my own mental health. And like now that I wasn't in a particular house or environment or group home that was dictated by a particular system, how could I really make that place my home at the same time, in addition to all of the other things that were necessary to be successful. So I think that, that was a really important process for me. For context, I eventually moved from that house that I was in into the dorms. But about a year and a half after that passed, no, I'm dating that. It was only about a quarter, but it feels like so much longer. I had used my keys to try to unlock my door and it was locked. And basically I had found out that I was evicted. The thing was, I had previously gotten eviction letters, but I was working with the financial aid office of my school. And they had said to ignore those because, they were basically factoring in some additional scholarships, and that it would be important to have those in. So I was to believe that I had everything set, and went there and realized at that moment that I no longer had housing. So at that point, I went on one of my friend's couches. It was really a mattress in like one part of a room that wasn't really meant to be housing at that time. But really just knew that with things such as the work that I was doing, with things such as extended foster care, that it was important to continue on. And also I was on work study. So my work was connected to being in school and all of those things. So really just, learn to find different environments like the libraries and things like that to continue to work on these things. Similar at the same time, always working on scholarships to be able to further advance my finances to be able to pay out of state tuition, but also to just getting better at telling my story. And I remember I always had a template for scholarships, so I would know what that prompt was and could have something to build off of, but really form it in that kind of way. So was definitely able to have multiple areas of help along the way, but it was difficult. And luckily I had a school that had a really flexible independent study program. So I think that can be a really important outlet when you have things that you want to pursue or do, and also need the credits at the same time. And was able to move to DC to continue that. But the work it never stopped. In DC it was really about, I had some family out here. What did that connecting with them look like? What did it look like to go from survival to thriving? And and I think that is really a forever thing for all current and former foster youth once you can get out there in the first place. So I think really a lot of the challenges was being in that survival mode, and then also figuring out like once you're maybe still have parts of that survival mode, but still the transition point to really get to thriving, because we don't necessarily have those embedded that element embedded into us always, at least for.
Yes, thank you, Louis. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you so much, Sophie, for giving me, the notch that I know I needed. Because Jackie, when you were talking, Louis, hearing your, your experience about going into college, I share that similar experience. I basically got dropped off in the dorms and they left. It was so hot in Fresno that the person that dropped me off couldn't even like breathe in the air. They literally dropped me off, radio, cover set, and just left. And I was just really like abandoned, like no lie. And I had to navigate that. So that just gave me, it almost brought me to tears because I know I'm with the back to school drive that I'm doing for it being specific to high school and college bound students. I know that I'm doing something right because we definitely need those needed essentials. I would have loved to be able to support you, Jackie, and give you cover sets and a microwave. We got refrigerators donated last year. And so I plan this year to, take it to the next level. And you guys and hearing y'all experiences and, it being similar to mine, that just lets me know that I am definitely in the right space doing the right things. And so you guys talked about your experiences, some of the challenges that you had faced, the financial hardship and housing hardship that you went through. And so what about the people that were around you? How could support had better helped you navigate through the financial hardships, the housing hardships, the different challenges that you had with, completing applications and just making sure that your things were done, connecting with teachers, et cetera. And then the next question is kind of gonna lead into cultivating positive relationships. And so I'll start with Louis for that one.
Thank you, Raquel. Yeah, I think that this question is so important. I was really reflecting on it because I think now I know the importance of mentorship is embedded in me. As we go throughout our professional careers, people tell you like, if you want to move up in the ranks, like you have to have mentorship and all those things. But at that time, I wasn't really thinking about that question as far as, who could be my mentor or like, who could I learn from? I definitely always had an open mind. And I think that led me to a lot of people who, even though I wasn't necessarily looking for that mentorship, I was able to find it in spaces that were critical for my development. I think that one of those was initially when I was in high school, my senior year, in having the 0.0 GPA, I had a couple elements of things that I was working with in order to graduate. One was I needed 40 credits in addition to my current course load, which is not a small amount. So I was working with that, and then also trying to figure out how do I get to college at the same time. So I had a college and career advisor who was recently placed into the school, and he was really supportive, I think, in meeting me where I was at. So not just being able to offer the things, but knowing that I had a history of ditching. So like, instead of ditching every day, what if I could go there for third period and then, make up some work that I had for my cyber high, and then also like look at scholarship applications instead. So it was one way where I felt like I was able to really work within a way that I don't even think the system would advise is like, oh, this is how you should graduate, by, for example, ditching class. But I was able to keep up with that class and think about my future, which motivated me to do that. So I think that being able to have somebody who understood, maybe it was just the fact I was a former foster youth and he knew that, or maybe just being, flexible. I think, as I continued to go on, another person I think about is my former boss at my community radio station. So when I worked there the first, it was about a year and a half later until I found some of the files and realized that it was the other hiring managers didn't want to hire me. So that kind of put into perspective, wow, like, it can just really be one choice that does or doesn't change your trajectory. But she was the person who really advocated for me from the front, was also the only other Black person of color that worked there, and the only other LGBTQ plus person. So basically we had a lot in common, and also she knew a lot of my aspirations professionally, a lot of my aspirations in things like training and strategic plan development, and things where I knew that it was applicable to this small radio station and this small college, but also could be expanded upon the community. So I appreciated her because she challenged me. She put me in certain spaces and rooms that I don't think I would have been in otherwise, with with important people, but more importantly, kind of gave me the freedom and flexibility to at that point was to become a director, and really try to figure out how to expand some of our promotions and outreach in the community. So we had that connection, but she was also, you know, there on the personal level and knew that it was really about sort of the coaching of that whole person. So that was somebody important. And then just an African American history professor who also would host certain chats and things, and was able to really, I think more than more than anything physical, was able to give just a lot of those sort of stories and wisdom and lessons that that I don't think I got to have from not having those sort of grandparents and elders to look up to. So I felt like that was always important. And in addition, I always tried to stay connected to programs like Voices, for example, which was my local one, but like things where I could get that sort of the peer mentorship, and also just like those the mentorship that comes with the ILP. But I think it was really important. And I was lucky enough to have a social worker who, even though I was resistant to having her in my life because she was part of the system, she wanted to be part of my life for personal reasons and not just the system, and made that you know, pretty clear over time. So I think it's important sometimes to evaluate and see, you know, who is really trying to be there for you, who do you feel that connection with, and make sure to keep that. So those were a few people, and now it's a question I consistently think about, but definitely was a process.
Well, I appreciate that response, Louis. And we definitely are going to dive more into the importance of mentorship and why that is important, and why it's important for mentors to seek college students, especially those that have been foster bound, to offer them encouragement and support. And so thank you so much for sharing that. Jackie, I want to pass that same question over to you. You also shared briefly, you know, mentioned some of your challenges with, you know, financial struggles and housing instability. How could having a better supportive system around you could have made that, you know, experience better?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I quickly want to answer Mark's question because it made me think. So his question was in the chat, and I thought about, you know, it wasn't always like the best. Like, there was times I was going through it. There was times I hit rock bottom. There was times I wanted to give up, but I feel like I had hope, and I feel like I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, there was an end to college. Like, college was not going to be forever. I knew it was going to open doors for me once I finished, and it did. And so that kind of innate motivation kept me going, even though, you know, times are trying, especially during the holidays in the dorms, being alone in the dorms, not having, you know, a lot of peers went home for the weekends to their families. And but I just knew I had to keep on going. So just that innate motivation, I feel like, kept me going. But yes, Raquel, I think mentorship is so important in building relationships in foster care. There's about 4 people I can think just right off top of my head that I would not be where I'm at without them. And that was one, my social worker. I had one of the best social workers in the world. And that wasn't always the case. And I think building a relationship as a social worker, I know there's social workers on this call, with your clients, where they feel like you care, because it's either, you know, first of all, foster youth typically don't even trust often or trust easily, or it's sometimes hard to build that rapport. But I always felt like I could trust my social worker, like he was on my side. He always came to bat for me when I needed it. And so I had that trust in him, and it just made things a lot easier. And so building a good relationship with my social worker was key, especially when I was under 18. He was really like the gatekeeper in everything that I could have done, especially living in foster homes and group homes. You know, they're always like, go ask your social worker. Did your social worker sign it? Did you, you know, social workers almost act like your parents or guardians in a sense when you're in the system. And then also I had a CASA worker. And I know here in Los Angeles, a lot of people have CASA workers. And so she actually was able to help me with some of my dorm stuff when she found out like I had a sheet and a pillow. She was able to create a registry and was able to buy me some, her and people she knew were able to like buy me stuff for the dorms to make sure I was set to succeed. And then I had an educational liaison, and he was very critical in my success. I would say he really, really, I think, believed in me and really wanted to see me succeed. And he stayed after hours to help me with applications and with essays and letter recommendations, and he really poured into me, and I'm so forever grateful for him, and one of the reasons why I want to give back and pour into others now. And then lastly, I had a mentor who was my former attorney when I was in foster care, and we actually kept in touch, and I still keep in touch with her. And same thing, I had a really good relationship with her when she was my attorney on my case when I was a minor. And we kept in touch since, and I just always felt like she was on my side, and I think that's so important. I think I remember there's some people in my life going in foster care, if I didn't feel like they were on my side or on my team or didn't want to see me win, I feel like I put guards up, or like I didn't want to trust them. I didn't want to tell them what was going on. I didn't want to be truthful. And so I think it's a two-way street when I talk about relationships that I have, you know, that I was able to build with being in foster care. But then also I know there's people on here that have clients and are able to build that relationship too. And foster kids in foster care, they're not bad kids. We're going through a bad experience, or, you know, this is just circumstantial. And so we just want support, and we just want love, and we just want understanding like any other kid does. And so when you're able to tap into that, you start both creating successful relationships. It's tough. People don't go into social work to make $1 million. People go in for certain reasons. People go in their past experiences or just wanting to make a difference in the world. And you can do that, but it's a lot of patience and time and just pouring into your clients.
Yes, thank you, Jackie. I was literally just about to write this in the chat because I feel like that. I always say that everybody goes into this work, you know, with a passion and a desire to actually give back. And some way along the lines, some folks really get lost, you know, and also connect with other people who teach them bad things and teach them bad ways to look at us. And you are absolutely correct. We are not bad kids. We just want love like any other kid. And we've been, you know, traumatically impacted, and, you know, we deserve grace. And so I appreciate you because, you know, if anybody would have gave up, imagine if, you know, I mean, folks gave up on me and told me I wasn't going to do anything. And now look at me, you know, helping and giving back to the community that I once was a part of. And look at you guys, you know. And so, you know, just to all the foster youth that are on this call or out in the world that's going to rewatch this recording, like, don't listen to what them folks be saying, because they just be saying, you know, if you got a desire in your heart to keep pushing and to keep going, then just keep fighting, because I promise you the other side of the tunnel is, you know, where the rest of us are sitting at, and we waiting for you. We welcoming you with open arms, and we want to share resources, and we want to find ways to keep amplifying our voices. And so thank you so much, Jackie. I had, you know, felt, you know, Martin Luther King Day just pass, and I was feeling, you know, very, I have a dream, inspirational. So I appreciate you. And so I'll pass that same question over to Sophie.
Yes, thank you, Raquel. I think what the question was regarding what we would have liked to have in terms of social support in college or in that journey of college.
Yes.
Now, I was very fortunate, and as I started college, as I had the Next Up program and the Guardian Scholars program to back me up and call me, really be my support system. So they're amazing. Shout out to all those people who are in those work fields. But when I entered the system, I mean, when I entered college, it was during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So we were all online. And I was living in AB 12 by myself in my own apartment, and it was a very lonely moment. So even though I had my social workers calling from the college or whatever, I didn't really have that college student awareness where you meet people who maybe have the same experiences as you or opposite experiences as you. So I had support in terms of people checking in on me and making sure that I was getting everything submitted, but I didn't really have that social interaction of meeting students who were struggling like I was struggling in terms of the study habits as I was talking about earlier. It would have been nice to have some sort of Zoom or just in-person group of former foster youth who were in college, so we could share what we were going through and share what was working for us in terms of our success and moving forward, because it is really hard, as Louie and Jackie were saying, to really keep going every day. Like Mark's question, how did you keep going amid the trials and tribulation? That's really just understanding that you are breaking a generational curse, is what I like to call it. I like to tell myself, no one in my family has done this. I need to be the one to break it. This ends with me right here, right now. And second, that I'm carrying millions of foster youth right beside me with this whole journey. Like, I'm paving a path. It's going to have to work. I'm going to make it work. So that's just what I would have liked to have, is that more social interaction between me and the students, not just the faculty or the social workers. But if you could just enforce a way for the students or for the foster youth to be surrounded by people who have the same experiences as them, that's better than any faculty worker trying to connect with them themselves, and they just possibly can't. That's my side of it. Thank you.
Yes, I really love that. And I'm actually going to pass the next question over to you, Sophie, because I felt like that you were definitely on line with where I was going. And so, foster youth often experience abandonment. It was hard for me to connect with people and create, relationships with people, because I have been abandoned and disappointed so many times, that when you do find those people who actually care, the social workers who believe in you, the social workers who really want to represent you, it's hard for you to cultivate those relationships with them because you've been let down so much. So based on your foster care experience, how did you have an ability or an inability to connect and cultivate relationships with peers, with your teachers, with other potential mentors in your school or your workspace? And was there a person or that person that helped guide you, through your pathway? I know you guys mentioned some of your social workers and foster parents that really helped. You talked about your college and career advisor, but what did they do specifically that really, help drive, your inspiration to keep you, focused?
You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay, got you. Thank you, Raquel. Great question. Mine is a little bit unique. I would say my main person of support and who I felt was all the way there for me was actually the mayor of Sacramento, Darrell Steinberg. Because as I stated before, as I had just started my community college, I bumped into him and he offered me that position in his office. He, like I said, saw something in me and gave me the chance, the opportunity to work in his office without even knowing me or any of my former experiences in office. And the ways in which he supported me was just by constant affirmation. And I cannot say that affirmations can go such a long way for former foster youth, that they can truly switch our mindsets. He would just say things like, "You are passionate, you are smart, you got this." I remember thinking, I've never worked in politics in my life. I remember saying to him, "I don't think I can do this." And he said, you have every tool in you to get this done. And I know that you can. So that was really pivotal for me and helped to move me forward, push me in a direction which actually made me a successful human being. So I would just say those affirmations from him were exceptional. And he knew that I had no one to show up to my graduation when I got my associate's degree. So Darrell Steinberg took time out of his calendar to show up at my graduation, and he brought the entire staff with him from the mayor's office. So that was community support in which I could never forget. And who gets to say that the mayor showed up to your graduation to support you? I mean, so I just gave all my kudos to him for seeing a spark in me and for nurturing that spark. It really is, I was held back and felt as if I couldn't get a lot of things done. But it has to be that person, that the faculty member, this person in your community, your boss, who makes that first step forward, who says, "I saw what you did there. You did a really great job, and I think you could do better." That will go a long way for anybody, from a foster youth, anyone, to help them grow to be who they really can be and who they are already. They just don't see it yet. So that's my part.
Yes, thank you, Sophie. Don't be having me emotional on this call today. It's the first one of the year, and I don't plan on crying until we get to like April or May. So, but I really, really, really appreciate it. And shout out to Mayor Steinberg for being influential in your, just trajectory and pathway, and just, because I never would have met you, and I'm so happy to have met you. And I'm telling you right now that for your San Francisco State University graduation, I definitely will be there if you send me the invitation. And so, because that's what it's about. And I definitely got your back, and you got my ultimate support. And I want you to keep going. And so thank you, Sophie. That just really made me feel really, really good, and just almost got me emotional. So Jackie, let me pass the same question over to you. What was that one person? I know you mentioned your social worker. If she's that one person, or he is that one person, what did they do specifically to help, you cultivate that relationship? And did you have an inability, or, connecting with other folks, peers, teachers, potential other mentors, as you were pursuing your education and career goals?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Sophie. That almost had me crying, because that's crazy. Like, shout out to him for doing that. That means so much. And those actions, you don't realize how much they mean until like they show up for you. But one specific thing that comes to my mind is, I remember during like finals, during holidays, during tough times, all these people that I mentioned in the previous question, they always sent me a text, or they always call me, just checking in. And that really meant a lot to me, because I knew like they still cared about me, and like they were still thinking about me, and they wanted to know how I was doing, and like anything they can do to help. And so just that check-in is just something so small, but it really meant a lot to me, especially during those tough times. And also, I think I mentioned that my social worker always came to bat for me. And that wasn't always the case, because I had social workers where I didn't feel like they were on my side. Like, it was me versus them, and they weren't aligned with what I was trying to do. And when I say that he was on my side, everything that I wanted, everything that I asked for, the answer was always yes. And if the answer is no, we're asking the wrong person, or we're submitting the wrong paperwork or whatever. And so he was able to do so many things for me, like just going above and beyond, and just showing that he really cared, and he was there, like he had my back. And so I constantly felt that, just like the energy around that. And maybe it wasn't like tangible things that he did specifically, but all in all, but I just think the check-ins, like taking an interest in clients, like a special interest, and checking in on them, it really goes a long way. Asking them, how are they doing? Is there anything I could do to support you? Is there any resources you need? Maybe I could put in a referral for you, following up, sending an email, whatever it is, but just taking that interest where you know that the client or the youth is feeling that. And that means a lot. At least it meant a lot for me.
Yes, going above and beyond, like that's literally all it really takes. And it really be like the small things that we like, that make us feel connected. And so thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing that. And so last but certainly not least, Louis, I want to pass that same question over to you, because you talked about the importance of mentorship. What did your mentor do specifically that really worked, that, really kept you focused, that really helped you, stay on track? And did you at one point, because of your experiences, have an inability of, connecting and cultivating relationships with your peers and other folks?
Thank you for that question, and thank y'all both so much. Like, again, just like hearing like Sophie's story about like the mayor, I'm just like, it just like makes me like pumped as well to know, like, that we all get to like have people in moments like where people can see the value and how special we are and help build. I think, I really want to focus on this second part, on the inability to make and build connections and relationships, because I think that that's the thing that still sticks with me today. To be completely honest, I always knew I was going to be successful. I didn't know how. Even when I had a 0.0 GPA, I just knew, like, these social workers, they just don't know what they're talking about. Like, they don't know me other than, the case. So I really, I used, really, my coping mechanism was disconnecting in care in order to kind of have my own sort of self-preservation, you could say, while still being able to get by and do everything. And by disconnecting, I think it really just means that, you know, oftentimes I was living in a group home and in isolation or some form of isolation. And certainly I was involved in, you know, having conversations around me and all of those things. But I think, you know, just not really practicing the building of relationships, you know, moving from community to community, and also wanting to get out of survival mode, get out of things like poverty in the system so bad to the point where that's really what I was thinking about. And I don't think I was thinking about my relationships in the same with the same kind of at the same level. So I think, you know, just being such in survival mode to the point of trying to work and trying to grind harder and harder. I really didn't get to focus on those skills like when you're 16 and 17 of like all of those like relationship building aspects of building that sort of community. I think even I had a cell phone later than a lot of my peers that I have now. And I always, because I was in foster care, and I always say, you know, y'all had cell phones when you were like 9 and 10. I had to wait till I was like 14 or 15. And I think even then I still, because of wanting to disconnect from the world around me, it caused me to also disconnect from people and situations where maybe, you know, I was really building that habit. So it's something now where I'm able to think about. It wasn't until I started thinking about my healing, as far as like how important is healing, like what does really looking at those pieces of myself that I run away from look like, in order to get further, where I started to think about like building out, you know, why is it that I'm unable to do this? Why is it that I'm more able to do things when I feel like they're for survival mode than do things for, you know, for that important community building, and really recognizing that it's not just giving your energy, but that you get so much from it. And then, you know, like that's what we're here for. So yeah, you know, I think that it definitely caused an inability. Even after this call, even after today, I'll be thinking about, you know, like who are those people that I need to reach out to? Like, what are those things that I need to do to stay connected? And I do that process every day, the sort of personal self affirmations, so I can stay connected, because I know that that was my trauma response at the time. So I really tried to do that, and I think I was maybe doing that process a little bit in college, maybe not fully aware, but definitely had people to see the how special I was. But I also know that there's limits to that, in the sense where I've had situations where I saw how special people saw how special I was, but maybe they wanted to use me for their agenda or sort of take advantage. And then it's at that point I realized that I just needed to see how special I was for myself. So I still value mentorship so much. I think that that adds a lens to it, because I can bring a sort of, I can bring value, even if I'm being mentored, I can bring value to the relationship because I see that sort of value. But it's definitely been a lot of people, and I would say maybe yourself now, Raquel, because we get to work a lot together. So
You guys are definitely all my program besties. I love you guys all the way, for real, for real. And I'm so proud of you guys. And I'm so grateful for you guys sharing your experiences and the things that you guys went through. And so let's get into the advice segment, because of course there are foster youth that are on this call that are going to watch the recording of this. We have social workers, we have people that, you know, are resource parents and work with foster youth. And, you know, we want to just basically give them some better ways, you know, based on our experiences. And so what's that piece of advice, that one piece of advice that, you know, or, you know, that some pieces of advice, I would say, to that you can give to all other, you know, foster youth and care, who would like to, you know, pursue their education, who would like to have a career, who just want to, you know, just be great, and, you know, they are experiencing challenges. You know, what is your advice on ways that they can better approach their challenges, how they can better pursue their educational goals, so that they can finish? Just, you know, give them some advice. What would you tell yourself, you know, if you were talking to yourself right now? And I'll start with Jackie.
I think I would just say to keep pushing on. There is like a light at the end of the tunnel. I think sometimes being in foster care, you feel like this is the end of the world. Like, this is my destiny. This is my life. My circumstances are like this because of X, Y, and Z that happened to me. But I always like to say you are the author of your own story, and you could write whatever it is that you want. You can be whoever you want. And the world is so big, you can have anything you want in this world. And so just having that mentality to keep pushing on and know that you are resilient and there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it does get better. And so that's what I would tell my younger self. I would tell other foster youth. And I think that's one way they can keep pushing on and be successful in whatever they want to do, because it may not necessarily be higher education. If it's trade school, like we need electricians, we need lawyers, we need oh my God, like estheticians, we need everyone. So whatever it is, whatever you want to do, just keep pushing on.
Yeah, so Louis, Sophie, you guys can just take it away. And thank you so much, Jackie, too. I appreciate that. Just a disclaimer, because I was responding to somebody in the chat. There are folks who are going to need training certificates. Please just send me an email. I'm going to put it in the chat and I will connect you to the correct person so that you can get your training hours, for being here in attendance today. Thank you. But Louis, take us away. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to make that disclaimer.
No worries at all. And could you remind me the question one more time? I promise I had it till the end.
Nope, I sure can. I got you. So just giving any advice to other former foster youth, what would you tell yourself? If you were talking to yourself, there are other foster youth on the call that are listening, that are going to watch this recording, that might be facing similar challenges that we've experienced. I just want you to give them a key sense of advice that they can use and take with them.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and this is something I really did throughout my whole time of being in foster care, is I always had like 1 to 3 goals and I always wrote them down. And sometimes there were goals that I didn't know how to actualize at all. And then other times, but I was still always trying to figure out, how would I really get from where I'm at, from this 13-year-old foster youth, like living in this group home, to like this like major goal, like how do I get there? Who do I need to meet? What do I need to further learn or like learn about myself? But it was important for me because I was in different settings and moved around like almost, I would say about like, almost every year for a while. So the settings, they had changed, but the goals, and the goals had changed too, but the process as far as like being able to find the time, well, it wasn't really hard to find time when you live in a group home, being able to write down your goal and like my goals, and really just being able to know that I had those with me no matter where I was. So like literally, like if I had a new placement, I would immediately go to my journal and like write down those goals, and really try to, more than anything, just have it be something that I could look at and that was around me and that could help inspire me. Because similarly to like Jackie said, I always knew that there was going to be a time to get out and the light at the tunnel, but really tried to figure out as far as how do I communicate with myself today, as far as how to be ready for that point. So I think it was helpful, and some things I realized over time that I thought were goals weren't goals, and that I wasn't really like super passionate about it, and other things I think I manifested for myself because of that process, and was able to really have it happen in real time. But I think that's important because, I mean, if you have the goals, and ultimately it's probably already in your head. And a lot of times I feel like, it is the identity exploration process to figure out like, what are my goals? What is it? And that sometimes could be hard when you're dealing with so many issues in foster care as well. So just taking that time to, I think quite step back, sort of question, what are my motives? Like, what is my situation? And also not necessarily, not that it's not you're acknowledging the present that you're in, but acknowledging the present that you're in, but also being able to write down and speak into the future what you hope and plan to do.
Yes, thank you so much. You're getting a lot of kudos and hand claps in the chat. Thank you so much, Louis, for sharing that. Sophie, I want to pass it over to you. And then we have one more question, and then I would like to get to some audience questions if we can, 1 or 2 audience questions. So if you have a question for our panelists, please feel free to drop it in the chat. I think we will have time to do 1 or 2 questions. And so Sophie, passing that same question over to you. Could you, provide some advice to another foster youth in care that probably thought that they wasn't, good enough to go to college, probably thought that they wasn't good enough to overcome their challenges, and, might have the opportunity to meet the mayor one day and need to know how to tighten up and be ready, and so could you give some advice to some of our foster youth that that's on the call and will be rewatching the recording?
Yes, thank you, Raquel. Thank you so much. So 2 things I have to share on this topic. First one, know your brilliance. Know your brilliance. Know that your story is unique for a reason. And anything that you want to do with your life, you can do it and do it better than anyone in the room because of your experiences, your unique experiences. Oftentimes when I was thinking like, how could someone from where I come from get to where that person is? I would just recall Malcolm X was a former foster youth. Gabrielle Douglas, Olympic winner, former foster youth. Tiffany Haddish, award winner in comedy, former foster youth. So remind yourself of the brilliant people that we see every day doing hard work, that they were in our same positions as well. So know your brilliance and know you can get there if you really want to and you work hard for it. The second one is find your passion. Find what you're passionate about, find what incites you, and then use your system experiences to go far in that field that you want to go in. Because I know for sure that we are given this life, this hard life, for a good reason to do good in this world and to sprinkle that on for the youth behind us. So that's my tip. Just truly know how amazing you are and your story is.
If I could add, I could just add.
Yes, please. Yes, we get deeper out here, please.
No, it's I definitely feel, and I'm starting to feel the inspirations. No, I would say that knowing your passion is also to knowing that it isn't just limited to working in child welfare, and that this work is so important, it's so impactful, and that you have the ability to change the lives of children, youth, and families, but also you can take the skills that you're learning if you're doing advocacy, if you're doing that sort of policy analysis, review, the writing on the ground, taking formulating questions and looking at how do I make questions, and that is appreciative inquiry, all of these skills, and take it into the field that you really want to, that aligns with your passion, and exploring too, so you can figure out what works and what doesn't, and what is ultimately going to bring that passion out, so then when something comes up that you have a lot of challenges ahead, that that you have the inspiration for it. So I think it's helpful too to know that there aren't really that there aren't limitations, and the things that you might be learning might be able to be transferred in spaces that maybe you just don't know yet.
Yes, heavy on transferred into spaces that you probably don't even know yet. So I always tell everybody that, often we're not welcomed or invited to those spaces. So sometimes you just got to kick down them doors, and invite yourself into those spaces. And so thank you guys so much. So last but certainly not least, I wanted to ask you guys, because we just definitely just gave advice to foster youth, because of course we all are lived experience youth. We want to share, words of encouragement with them, but then there also are people who serve us, right, that are on this call right now, that are doing the work right now. And so what is some advice on that you could give to the resource parents that are on the call, the social workers that are on the call, the mentors, anyone that is on the call that can utilize this information on better ways to not only cultivate relationships with us, but to ensure support is there and meeting us the way that we need to be met, so that we can have positive outcomes, through our educational pursuit and our career, while we're tackling our career goals. And so what could they do differently? And what is some advice that you have to offer to the resource person? We can get specific, someone can do a resource, somebody can do a mentor, somebody can do the social worker. You guys can do all of them in the same thing. But I definitely want to make sure that we are providing some, solutions to those who serve us. And so I'll kick it over to Lupe first.
Thank you so much. I think as systems professionals, it's important to really just know that it's important, like to think about that whole person and that and like holistically when you're interacting with the youth, the person that's you might have them as a social worker, as an attorney, these really specific things that you need to do or get done in order to move their lives forward or basically move forward your own career. But being willing to know that sometimes it takes more than that, and more than that doesn't mean just showing up one time or just doing a couple things differently, but being willing to have the trust building processes embedded in there as well. Because I think without that trust, that none of this can happen. The self exploration of identity, the sort of sharing to understand these goals, that it really is about what is that space that you create when you're working with your youth. And knowing that isn't meant to be full of pressure, that you have to show up exactly right or exactly a certain kind of way. You just have to show up, really, and you have to do it in a way where we know and that they know that you're showing up for them and advocating for their needs. And it might not always be a one for one. You might tell your social worker something, and really that's something that would be probably for court, and that's helpful for your attorney. But in that case, I would want you to help me get there, as far as making sure that that whatever I have kind of gets it is able to be worked on. But I think just being able to be there, and also doing the sort of self-evaluation too of yourself, so you can know, like, how am I showing up today? Am I fully present in my role as as a social worker right now? And being able to think about, I know we're talking about life goals and stuff, but am I thinking about that, or am I thinking about other things? So I think the people who are also able to show me that they were present and give me that sort of like real-time like feedback and advice, and who knew me well enough to know, like, these are some things, knew me well enough. That's the key word, because a lot of people will think, or cast assumptions or read your case file or do all those things, but it knew me well enough to know kind of how to deepen those sort of conversations. That stood out a lot, even in my times of being most disconnected from, really everyone and everything around me. So yeah, I think that just show up, be there, do some self-assessment to make sure that you're being present, and listen. If the youth or something is telling you something as feedback, then listen and take it as feedback the best that you can, while still doing what you need to do in your role. So.
Yes, thank you, Louis. I think that was very powerful. And I hope that everybody that's watching or listening out there really, took into what you said, listening, being a listening ear, not passing judgment. All of those things are important when trying to cultivate and build a special relationship. Like, we already been through, excuse my language, but we done been through hell and back, and so, like, to have that one person that can make, your opportunities, your experiences, that one moment, feel like heaven, imagine what you could do and how much, lives you can change, when you're doing that for multiple people and just going the extra and above, extra mile. And so thank you. Sophie, I want to pass that same question over to you. Any advice that you want to offer any of the resource parents, the social workers, those professionals that serve foster youth and system impacted youth? What can they do differently? How can they be better supportive? How can they show up, and really be supportive?
Yes, thank you, Raquel. So mine is really for the social workers, CASA workers, and the attorneys that are here today. My main problem in the system, as I was emancipating and turning 18, about to go to college here, was that everything in my court reports, everything that was written about me while I was in the system, was everything that I had done, which was considered bad, like running away from my foster homes, maybe getting into a fist fight at school, et cetera, et cetera. But they would never put in my court reports how I had won in an art show in my high school, or they would never put that I had straight A's. It was always the things that I was doing, which they considered not right, not appropriate. And it really made me feel as if that's what defined me. That's what I was made of. Here's this thick, pile of paper, and which is nothing but everything that all the mistakes I've made as a kid, as a minor. And now here I am going into life as an adult, trying to succeed as an adult with these things that are right beside me. So what I would like to say to all of you listening, who are the ones that are behind those reports or even reading those reports, is to try and focus on the good things that the youth is doing. Try to focus on the areas in which that youth is succeeding in. If you see that youth is doing really good in art, but not in math, tell that youth, don't focus on, okay, you're doing terrible in art, in math. Like, don't focus on that area. Focus on how well they're doing in the art. Because that's what happened for me, as my teachers would say, Sophie, you may not be doing well in math and science, but your art classes and your history classes are doing exceptional. And now I have public art pieces in Sacramento that I get paid for, right? So that ended up actually being successful for me because somebody noticed that about me. And instead, I had these foster system reports in which were stating something so totally different and was holding me back as a person. So my advice to you is just focus on where the youth is succeeding and focus on their strengths. And like I said, affirmations go a long way. And just tell the youth that they can do well in that area. If they wanted to, they can go far in that area. But so often do we degrade the youth on not doing well in terms of, getting in the fist fights, the grades, the running away from the homes, whatever. Put that aside for a little bit and tell that youth how amazing they are and what they're doing that makes them happy. And that will set them up for success as they go for college, as they go for trade school, as they go into the work field after high school. That's my take. Thank you all for listening.
Yes. And so, Jackie, can you, send us home? Send us home. What's some good advice that you have? Especially, I know in the workspace that you are, in, what is some advice that you want to give to the social workers, the resource parents, those who serve foster youth on, better ways that they can, just differently approach the situations, differently approach us, differently help us cultivate relationship with them?
Of course, yeah. I think Louie and Sophie said a lot of them already, but one of them that I wanted to mention was, going off of what Sophie said, when there's a stack of paperwork about all the things that's bad about you or whatever they write in those files, when you show up as a resource parent or a social worker or an attorney, not coming in with a preconceived notion about the youth already, not having an idea of who you think the youth is going to be based off of all this paperwork that you read. And so really getting to know the youth and where they're at. And the other thing I wanted to say was meeting the youth where they're at. I know that sounds very cliche, but what works for me won't work for another youth. We all have different experiences. We're all in different parts of our healing, of the trauma that we may have experienced. And so there's not a one size fits all approach to every youth, and every youth is in a unique situation. So just meeting a youth where they're at. And then the last thing that I'll say, because I think you guys touched on a lot of it, but the one thing that I experienced, not only when I was in the system, and then I also was a case manager, a lot of it is like just not following up. I feel like a lot of times youth and their needs fall in the cracks. And as a social worker, as a resource parent, as an attorney, just going that extra mile, like submitting the referral, doing the email, pointing them in the direction of the resource or whatever will really, really go a long way. Because at the end of the day, these are real kids' lives. Like you are shaping the trajectory of their lives as we speak. And whether you see that in the big picture or the small picture, ultimately these youth will look back and we will remember these experiences and interactions that we had with each of you. And so that could really make or break and shape the trajectory of where these youth are going. So just following up and just going the extra mile and just, because I oftentimes see youth fall in the cracks because the lack of.
Yes, I was reading some of the stuff in the chat, and I appreciate you guys that are in the chat too. And thank you so much, Jackie, so much, Sophie, so much, Louie, for being here today, for offering all of this advice, sharing your experience, and just being vulnerable. It's not easy, to talk about your experiences, especially the ones that could have ultimately broke us, right? But like you guys said, we are not our paperwork. And we definitely deserve the opportunity to be able to flourish in all of the things that we are, even if we don't know we are. And so I'm grateful for all three of you guys. I'm always looking forward to doing more work with you. Sophie, I'm not playing about that graduation invitation. And just shout out to all the people who were in the chat, having conversation, introducing themselves, keeping it going. We really couldn't host these webinar events without you all, and your attendance and your support, and just your gracefulness. So I really, really appreciate that. So at this time, you guys will see in your chat a post evaluation come up, and please, if you're watching this recording, if you're here today, please fill this out, because it just literally lets me know what I could be doing better as a facilitator. Some folks be saying I be talking too much. I be trying not to talk too much. I be trying to, be engaging. I be trying to do my best, my best of my best. And so whatever it is that I could do, to continue to cultivate these type of conversations, to continue to create a safe space for foster youth to amplify their voices and share their lived experiences, this is literally going to let me know how I can do that. If you guys have topic ideas that you guys want to see next year for our webinars, and add it to our webinar list, and conversations that you guys want to see us talk about, please feel free to utilize this forum to also let us know some of the stuff that you want to see. And so thank you guys so much for that. So just to share some of the upcoming things that we have, if you attended our Meet Little April film screening, the writing submission is going to be closing on Monday, the 23rd, as well as our writing and poetry contest. So if you are interested in submitting for our writing and poetry contest, the stories are going to be dedicated towards and inspired by juvenile impactor stories. And so you do not have to have juvenile justice lived experience to write a story. So if you are a former foster youth, you have a story to share, you want to talk about utilizing one of the prompts, please feel free to utilize these links to enter in the contest. Grand prize for first place writing for the writing contest is $1,000, and for the poetry contest is $500. And so we're looking forward to reading all of the submissions. Last year we had over 70 submissions, both on the writing and poetry side. And so I'm definitely looking forward to, continue to create ways to help foster youth amplify their voices and utilize these links to do as such. Next, but certainly last but not least, if you would like to join our next event, we are going to be talking to Black youth who are former foster youth about their experience in foster care. Often we are overrepresented and underrepresented. So we are going to be talking about the disproportionality of Black foster youth in the system, and it's titled Oppressed and Overrepresented. And so if you would like to register for that event, please feel free to do so. And also on our website, you guys, we have included the entire list for our webinars for the entire year. And so if you are interested in just going and registering for all the ones that you're interested in attending, you can do so now. And we also have a webinar request form. So if you are a former foster youth interested in being a panel for any of one of our discussions, which are all paid, we compensate all of our panelists. I try to compensate everybody that does something with the Youth Voice program. And so we have a webinar request form. If you are interested in being a panelist, you can request to do as such, and I will put that link in the chat. Last but certainly not least, Youth Voice Risings aspires to serve and empower more youth than ever in the 2023 year and beyond. If you are interested in supporting us, please click the link to donate to the program. When I say that this program is for us, by us, like literally, that's how I kind of set it up. Everything is paid for. When we have panelists, when they do writing submissions, all of the contributions that the youth make to the program, we pay them for and we compensate them for it. And so we definitely are not trying to be walkers. We're trying to be definitely not trying to be talkers, we're trying to be walkers, and your support helps us go a long way. And some of the things that our panelists, had mentioned in regards to some of the issues that foster youth face as they're matriculating or trying to matriculate a university. We have our 2023 Pack for Your Future back to school drive that will be coming. So look out for the announcements. This is also a way that you can also help by donating to help us, get some needed essential supplies. Last year we had computers, refrigerators, microwaves, towels, blankets, all sorts of items donated. And we set it up so it's easy and convenient for you to be able to participate in the back to school drive. So we'll be sharing more information about that. But please, if you are interested in donating and just offering some support to us, this is the way that you can do it. And so also just keep up with us on our social medias. This is how you can follow us. I want to thank everybody here that attended today, that including our panelists for, being open and vulnerable to sharing their experiences, their lived stories. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys for just being in the audience, in the chat. I really couldn't do this without you guys. And I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Katie, if you reach out to me, I can send you the recording for the Meet Little April. Actually, we're going to be sending out an email with the recording of this webinar, so we can actually include the recording and the information for how you can submit in the follow-up email. I'm sorry about that. So thank you guys so very much. With that being said, you guys all have a blessed Thursday, a happy Thursday. One more day out from the weekend. If you guys would like to connect with me about any workshops that we host with our Empowered Journalism training, connecting about our internship or contributor roles that we teach journalism to foster youth who are interested in writing or don't know that they're interested in writing, but just need the little extra push from me, please stay in touch and connect with me. I reached out to some of you guys via the chat in your message. I definitely want to connect with you guys. So I'm going to put my email one more time. If you need a certificate for attending today, please reach out to me so that I can connect you to the correct person so that you can get your training hours. With that being said, God bless you all. Thank you guys again for being here, and we'll see you guys next month at our over oppressed and overrepresented webinar. Have a great day.